Alrighty, mathematicians, it's another week, it's another bit of learning, and this week we're learning to understand equivalent fractions. Now, when I say equivalent fractions, you will, I'm hoping, have heard of the term before, but if you haven't, equivalent fraction is all about finding a fraction that not necessarily has the same numbers as another, but the same properties. Now, when I say that, I'm going to delve straight into understanding, and we're going to have a look at these squares right here. And these two things are equivalent fractions. We've got 1/2 and we've got 2/4. And I'm going to tell you that they equal each other. They are the same. I know they don't look the same, but I promise you they are. When I say 1/2, I'm going to split this square up into halves and shade it in. Oh, that was a horrible half. That's not so much better, but there we go. There's a half shaded in. You can agree that that looks like a half. And on this square, I'm actually going to create the quarters. Remember that the denominator means how many, and the numerator means how many have been taken or how many have been selected. And you can see very closely that these are the same. This side and this are the same amount being taken. Yes, of course, this is 2/2 and 1/2 is being taken, but ultimately, this is also a half of the square being coloured in, even though we have spoken about 2/4. They're the same value. It has the same value. Okay? If I sneak on over to this guy right here, it's the same scenario. First things first, we've got 1/3 and 2/6, and I'm going to tell you that they equal each other. I'll show you how. We're going to get the 1/3 going on. It's going to be horrendously unequal. Remember, fractions are always usually equal, but for this moment, unfortunately, I've not made them too equal. That's not too bad. All right, so first things first, let's have a look. I'm going to colour in red 1/3. So remember, 3 different areas, 3 different spots, I guess, of the circle. They're all the same size, they're all equal, and one of them is taken, one of them shading in, because that's our numerator 1. And over here, we've got 6 equal-ish, not great drawings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal-ish parts, and 2 are being shaded, 2. All of a sudden, you can see that it's very similar in terms of the space it takes up. Yes, this is 1/3. Yes, this is 2/6, but ultimately they are the same amount, equaled in the amount of area they take up. Equivalent fractions are always found by using the denominator and the numerator, numerator, to multiply or divide those two numbers by the same number, all right? So, for example, here you've got 2/6 and 1/3. To get from 1/3 to 2/6, you've multiplied the numerator and the denominator by 2. And because you've done the same process to top and bottom, of course it's going to be an equivalent fraction because you've done the same. Similarly, over here, let's scroll on over. For a half, to get from a half to 2/4, we've multiplied by 2. The reason that you need to get involved with equivalent fractions, especially when you're learning, is so you're able to compare and work out which is a bigger fraction. It's really tough to work out which is a bigger fraction if you're not sure what the equivalent fractions are. So this week, we're going to practice the equivalent side of things. So let's find an equivalent fraction for 4/6. And when we find an equivalent fraction for 4/6, we might place it on a number line. But for the moment, let's find an equivalent fraction. So to find an equivalent fraction, we just multiply or divide by the same number to the numerator and the denominator. So let's multiply by 2. Why not? So multiply by 2 to the numerator, and that becomes 8. Multiply by 2 to the denominator, that becomes 12. So 8/12 is exactly the same as 4/6. When you colour in a circle with 12 pieces, and when you colour in a circle with 6 pieces, the 4/6 and the 8/12 will look the same. They'll have the same amount of area covered. Now let's go to the division side of things and let's divide now. Let's make an equivalent fraction by dividing. So maybe I'll divide by 2 this time. When you're dividing, always look for common numbers that they'll divide by. If you can't find a common number for the numerator and the denominator, it's almost certain that you're at the lowest fraction it can be. But I know that 4 can be divided by 2, makes it to 2, and 6 divided by 2 makes it to thirds. Now, of course, 2 and 3 are prime numbers, so it means that no other numbers can multiply to get to them apart from 1 and itself. So 2/3 is its lowest number. All right? So we now know that 4/6 is equivalent to 2/3. What about 2/8? Well, 2/8 we can do exactly the same. This time we can multiply by 3, but make sure we're doing the same top and bottom. Multiply by 3, multiply by 3. And we can do 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. 3 multiplied by 8 is 24. And even though they look completely different, because we've done the same to the top and the bottom, they are equivalent fractions. So let's do the other way. Let's divide again by 2. Not a great divide sign, Mr. Todd. But when you divide 2 by 2, you're going to get the number 1. And when you divide 8 by 2, you're going to get the number 4. So, as well as being equivalent to 6/24, 2/8 is also equivalent to 1/4. And we know 1/4, we've worked with it so many times. This time, let's work with 9/27. 9 is our numerator, 27 is our denominator. And I'm not going to go any bigger than this because usually if 27 is the denominator, it's not going to be any higher than that I want it to be. We're going to go lower. So to go lower, you're going to have to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. Now, I can see very clearly, and I hope you can as well, have a think, is there a number that goes evenly into 9 and evenly into 27? Let's have a think. Well, yeah, I can think about 3. Let's try 3. So we're going to divide, because we're going to make it smaller, divide by 3. And let's see what happens here. So 9/27, 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 27 divided by 3 is 9. Now, that looks quite low, but I know that I can divide this again. Now, 2 doesn't go into 3 or 9, but 3 certainly does. So let's divide again by 3. This time we'll do it in red. And all of a sudden, we've got ourselves another equivalent fraction, 1/3. Wow. It's the same because 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. So 1/3 is equivalent to 3/9, and that is equivalent to 9/27. Now this week, what really needs to happen is you to decide where these fractions belong on different number lines, okay? And you'll be presented with lots of different number lines and fractions that need to be available. So let's make this nice and big. There's our number line. It stretches all the way from 0 to 2. And in there, we've already got some fractions listed. You can see that we've got all the 12ths listed. And you can also see below the 12ths, the 6ths listed. And then below the 6ths, you've got the thirds listed. Now you can clearly see that 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. And 2/6 is equivalent to 4/12. Because when you multiply 1/3 by 2, 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Similarly, 5/6 is equivalent to 10/12. Because when you multiply 5 by 2, you get 10. And when you multiply 6 by 2, you get 12. All right, we've worked out the equivalent fractions for these numbers. I'm going to see whether or not you, in your own head, can place the green numbers, this one, 8/12, and 9/27, on our number line based on the equivalent fraction it is. And this is something that I'm going to put in the quiz, I suppose, after this. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you go. So let's do 9/27 first. Let's have a real zoom in on 9/27. And now I know that 9/27 is equivalent to 3/9 and 1/3. We've already got 1/3 in our number line. It's just here. It's equivalent to 2 6 4/12. And now I know that 9/27 is equivalent to 1/3. I'm going to whack it on our number line just there. So now we can see that 9/27, let me just move it forward a little bit, is the equivalent of 1/3, 2 6 and 4/12. Okay, let's move on. 8/12 is our next green number. Now 8/12 we've already worked out is equivalent to 4 6 and 2/3. So on this number line we can absolutely put 8/12 on the number line because it's equivalent to 2/3. It says it right there. 2/3 is just there, and let's put it on there. So we now know that 8/12 is the same as 2/3 and 4 6 and 8/12. In fact, 8/12 is already on the number line. Geez, that was easy. That's confirmed our suspicions, our answers. All right, the final one is 2/8. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because we haven't actually got eighths at the top here, or 24ths, or quarters, which is the equivalent fraction we found. So what we're going to have to do is work out which of these fractions in the 12ths is the same as a quarter. How we're going to do that is we're going to find the equivalent fraction of a quarter that has 12 as its denominator. Okay, so let's zoom in over here and let's see what we've got going on. We've got a quarter and we need to get to 12 as the new denominator, so then we can put it on our number line at the top. Now we need to find a number that we can multiply this denominator to get to this denominator. And we need to do the same multiplication at the top for the numerators as well. All right, have a think. 4 multiplied by what gets us to 12? 4 multiplied by 2 is 8. 4 multiplied by 3 is 12. Spot on. So we've done 4 multiplied by 3 at the denominators. We have to do that the same at the top, because if we do it to the bottom, we do it to the top. So 1 multiplied by 3 is 1. Is 1? No way. It's 3. So now we've got 3/12. So I now know that a quarter is equivalent to 3/12. And a quarter is also equivalent to 2/8, which is the one we're trying to find out. So if a quarter is the same as 3/12, then it belongs just here. I might do a sneaky little 1/4 just there to remind us. And finally, we can move the 2/8 to that area as well. Perfectly done. Absolutely spot on. And we now have a complete number line. Let's have a quick look. You can see there very clearly that our new equivalent fractions have been added on to the list. Well done if you got all the way through this, understanding where we're at. And hopefully the quiz is ready to go for you. Good luck.